Welcome to the Mischief. I'm Vallen, and this is Better with Mods. Today I'm going to be covering how to get soul-forged ingots, as well as a whole bunch of the different tools and weapons, armor, and more. So I'm sure you noticed that I'm fairly fully equipped here. Let me take these off and kind of strip myself down a little bit so I can easily better illustrate what is going on here. So I'm going to show you guys the differences in the armor types, as well as some of the weapons and tools, but I'm also going to show you how to make the soul forged ingots, which are kind of like the end gamey stuff. So first I'm going to show you how to make the soul forged ingots. If you want to check out the rest of it, you'll have to kind of skip forward a little bit. But you're going to want to make yourself a soul forged steel anvil as well, which is made from those ingots. Now, an ingot of these is made just by putting a bunch of nuggets together. No, I'm kidding. It's actually made in a stoked crucible, which I've shown you in previous bit by bits on how to make this. If not, then please be sure to check the playlist and you can find out there. It will require an iron ingot and charcoal or coal dust, which can be ground up in your average, your mill of some sort. Plus a soul urn, which I've also shown how to obtain one of these at your own risk. Now, the last item, soul flux, is actually much more difficult to obtain than your previous items altogether. Reason being is that it requires you to have gone to the end, or at least obtained end stone. So if I look at the recipe for this, it will need to be put in a stoked crucible, and basically you're going to be smelting up ender slag, which will get you soul flux and brimstone. Brimstone is more or less an ingredient in most cases for like brewing, as well as some other uses, but ender slag in this case is going to be, well, you guessed it, end stone in a stoked kiln. So I have a little bit of end stone, and I can just run down here. All right, here I am down here, and if you haven't already guessed, you just need 4 bricks around a stoked area, and as you can see here, I have a bellows here, so you can have it actually blow out the results, but you put it in place, and you wait for it to finish cooking. There we go, and you'll get 2 different outputs. One is white cobble, the other is going to be ender slag, which of course, as I said before, is going to be what you want to put inside a stoked crucible. I have one here, and it already has a whole bunch of ender slag in it, which is creating the brimstone and soul flux, which, by the way, the brimstone, as I said, you can use it in all sorts of different brewing recipes, or you could potentially put it in a cauldron with some niter and charcoal dust to make gunpowder. That's the alternate use there. But if you have that ender slag, plus you have iron, some kind of coal or charcoal dust, and your local urn tossed into your crucible, you will in time make yourself one of these, a soul-forged steel ingot. And you may get back the urn itself, you may not. It all depends if it's going to destroy it or not. But soul-forged steel ingot, which then has a lot of different uses, but you're going to need to, well, be a bit more creative with its use. You can put it in a regular crafting grid and get back the nuggets as you would need, because you might need those for the different types of tools and armors that you might be able to make. Now, your basic thing here is just going to make kind of like a capital I shape here, and get a soul forged steel anvil, which is going to allow you to do a lot of different things that you normally couldn't do on an anvil. Now, as I am in creative now, or not in creative anymore, if I right click on this, it is now going to do nothing. It is called a dead weight. If you look in the top left corner, the vanilla anvil is no longer really that useful. You can use it for a couple things, really, which I might get into in another bit by bit, but for now, it's really not going to be that helpful. A soul-forged steel anvil, on the other hand, if you right-click to open it, you'll see it now has a 4x4 crafting grid, which is, even bigger and greater. The use for a soul-forged steel anvil is going to be one of many wondrous things. A block dispenser, a buddy block, your detector blocks, as well as you see here, your different armor sets, some ingredients for other recipes, your tools, weapons, your soul-forged steel blocks. That's right, you have to make them on this. It's not made in a standard recipe table, as well as some other things, like chainmail, or even a candle holder, which, yes, soul-forged steel, but it looks really cool, and you can have it as tall as you want, but it does have to have a base. If I am to put one down, I just need to click on top of it and I can make it that much taller, and then you just click on top with a candle and it will make it even bigger. If you break it anywhere in the middle or the bottom, the entire thing falls down and you need to pick up all the pieces. So it's not something you can like click on the side of a wall. It has to be built up from the ground. Alternate to that, I did talk about Soulforged steel blocks. These are actually blast resistant, like wither resistant. They're very, very useful, difficult to harvest, and well, they can protect all your goodies in the world if you so desire. Plus, you can even use them as part of a beacon for a different kind of effect, like setting spawn. But before we get too carried away, I've got some stuff in my inventory here. Specifically, I'm going to start with some simple things, and then we're going to get on into the more complex. This is where we're going to start covering the weapons and armors and tools. Oh my. We're going to start with the Ender Spectacles. If you look here, I have no armor set up going on right now, and I put this on. It does give me a little bit, so I do get like +1 armor on that. And just by wearing this, by putting these on, it would allow me to actually see things that I normally couldn't. As you can see, I now have True Sight, which allows me to see strange particle effects nearby. In this case, I have another mod installed that allows me to see the different light levels, or at least that there's an area at nighttime that this would potentially spawn mobs. In this case, there's a sun in the sky, so it's not likely. But this is going to be a more likely chance of spawning area because it's underneath the trees. Therefore, it is completely blocked from the sky. In this area out here, it's just there's a light source there, as you can see, but it's not really going to do too much because there's nothing there. I do have a platform up here that I created that is creating a shadow down below that is also blocking visibility. So therefore, these are things that might happen. You can see that there's going to be a lot of dark area where mobs are going to spawn. So any of these particles will basically help you find those areas if you don't have additional mods installed for such a thing. So with that aside, though, it does have an additional effect. If I take an Enderman here, and I'm going to put on some armor just in case, and I put this down, we have an Enderman. And I can look at him, and he just kind of teleports away. He doesn't really do too much. He doesn't like it. He gets kind of just pushed away, I guess. I mean, you might have a chance of hitting him, but he's not going to just come straight at you and attack you. Instead, it's more like he's kind of being on occasion hit by some kind of arrow effect. But it gives you the ability to harvest Enderman with little to no risk at all. Plus, they just kind of make you look a little bit goofy. Alright, so let's take a look at some of these other armors that we have. To start off with, I have installed another mod that allows me to kind of register how fast I move on blocks. And it's called Squeedometer. It's just a little side note. It's going to allow me to better illustrate what's going on. If you look at the bottom left, it'll say 0.00 blocks per second. This is what I'm going to use to demonstrate the difference between light, medium, and heavy armors. That's right, each one of these may actually slow you down depending on the armor type. So if we go with the base speed, I have a 4.32 block per second walk. This is just me walking normally, I am not running. And this is my control group. This is what I'm going to base things upon. So if I wear wool armor, which as you see here, it's just on an armor stand, it's not really fancy or anything like that. It will allow you to basically walk and run at your normal speed as if you were unarmored. Same thing with leather, as well as tanned leather. Now once we get into chain armor, on the other hand, which is actually made in an interesting fashion, you'll need to make chain mail, which is made on a soul-forged steel anvil. You might think, well, why would I want to make chain mail when it's actually inferior in protection to some of the other metals? The reason being is that it's a medium weight armor. It's not as cumbersome as some of the others, which as you can see here are all 3.45 for the blocks per second travel rate when walking on something as simple as grass. Yes, you can walk on paths and other stones and stuff and you'll speed up. But when walking on grass, that's your basic rate is going to be 4.32. Now the chain is kind of in between 4.32 and 3.45. It's a 3.89. So it's kind of like a middle tier, and it does definitely offer a bit more protection than the others do. For example, the wool armors is basically going to be 1, 2, 3, and nothing for the cap. but it is colorable. So as you can see here, I used some cyan dye on it, and it is usable like that. And the durability is relatively low. So you can see it's somewhere in this 80 on the shirt down to like 55 for the cap. Moving on to leather and tan leather, the difference between these is they have the same stats, 1, 2, 3, and 1, so that it's basically you get one more ability on the cap there, and they are dyeable as well, but the tanned leather is just double the durability. And if you're curious about the wool stuff, it's just made with different, wool types, just in the same manner as you would regular armors. And of course, those are dyeable as well. None of the other armors besides these three are going to be dyeable. And your chain armor, of course, is made with a bunch of iron nuggets in a soul-forged steel anvil, which, like I said, it just gives you an option. That if you wanted to, you didn't have to go with something heavy. You could go for something kind of mid-tier if you so desired. Now, gold, iron, diamond, and plate, each one of those is made in your traditional sense. I mean, you've got your gold, your iron, your diamond, which those ingots are made a little bit special. I'll cover those in a moment. And your plate armor helmet, of course, is going to be made in a soul-forged steel anvil with a bigger recipe. And the reason being on these, your golden armor is actually a little bit better than usual. If you look here, it's better than your typical like low tier leather or something. So your lowest is going to be the helmet with 77. So it's going to be better than your standard stuff, but like in vanilla Minecraft. But then you move up to iron and you get a bit more. In this case, you see we've got much better durability, much better protection, and then of course your diamond is going to add in some toughness values as well as really good armor values and really good durability. And then you get into the plate armor, and it's going to be a little bit better. If you look here, it actually offers a little bit better armor toughness than the diamond, but otherwise it offers the same armor protection. And the armor toughness is going to protect you more or less against large spike damage abilities. But its biggest benefit is its durability is really big. Like a diamond chestplate's 528, and plate armor is 640. Now, if I put these on, let's put this on here, you'll see that I'm walking much slower than I was before. So if I take them off, and then I can walk much quicker, just to illustrate how the speed is with walking with these things. So you can still jump the same distance and everything. It's just a matter of you're going to be experiencing somewhat of a slowing effect, or at least if you're wearing these ones, you will. Now, I did mention something about the materials being somewhat different for making diamond and soul forged steel ingots, as I already demonstrated. Now, the diamond in this case is going to be a little bit interesting. You will need multiple things. A diamond ingot is actually required to make armors and tools, which requires an iron ingot, a diamond, and a creeper oyster. And if you've forgotten how to get a creeper oyster, just remember you need to use some shears on a creeper that's advancing on you. Now, if you take these three items, put them in some kind of crafting table, any order will do, you'll get one of these, diamond ingot. What the heck just happened? That's right, you'll get a little explosion effect from that because you're kind of using the creeper oyster to fuse the other two together. And then you get yourself your diamond ingots, which can be used to make your typical armors and weapons and tools. So now that we've covered enough of the armors as such, let's get into some of the more interesting things like weaponry and tools. So as you can see here, I've got the different picks and shovels. Your typical wooden pickaxe and wooden shovel will break after one use. Don't worry, your Minecraft vanilla bow is still just as good as it was before, but your composite bow is going to be even better. Reason being is, well, let's take some of these. I have broadhead arrows to start with, which actually just add an extra level of damage. But if I use a regular bow or a composite bow, things are a little different. So let's start shooting off in the distance here. And you can see that there's a big drop off from that arrow. Now, if I shoot with the composite bow, it goes much further. The velocity in a composite bow is going to be much greater, and it's going to have a higher durability. So that's a big benefit on this. It's made with your typical stuff here, but it's got some bones, some oak wood planks, a bit of glue or slime, and a string. So you're going to have a little bit of a setup in order to obtain one. But until then, you can still use your regular bow for your regular setup, as well as your regular vanilla arrows. which if you look here, your regular vanilla arrows are there. Your broadhead arrows on the other side are similar but different. Your broadheads are going to need Soulforged steel nuggets. And you can see now that you really need to get some of the Soulforged stuff to get the really end gamey items. This will give you 6 broadheads that you can use to make multiple new broadhead arrows from. So if I were to use these, let's demonstrate how good or bad these can be. So let's take a moment to actually kind of do a little bit of theory crafting just so you guys can see the different damage values in some of this. If I take a regular vanilla bow with regular vanilla arrows and shoot at this dummy that I'm using here from the mod, you can see that it's got a slight variance of some relatively low damage, but it's still good. It's a bow, it's a ranged weapon. Now if I use the composite bow, it's more or less going to stay about the same. You're going to get the same results. But if I switch out the arrow types, then things are going to change a bit. Your regular vanilla bow is going to still, do a little bit higher damage. And then you've got your composite bow, which is going to do a little bit higher damage. It works, in my opinion, better with it. I had better results. And then, of course, if I go a step further, let's take a Power 4 composite bow. You'll be able to see that you can get some really powerful damage on this thing. So it can vary, of course, from, I was finding around like a 10 to as high as, 21.5. So there is still the whole random factor of, shooting with bows in Minecraft, especially with this mod, but therefore you have some idea of what you're getting into. Now, as far as making the armor from Soulforged steel, that's going to take a little bit. You have to make it on the anvil, of course, but you also need to make plate armor, not just the ingots themselves, which requires leather straps, padding, and Soulforged steel. Now, the padding is just going to be some hemp cloth and feather. That's right, you have multiple uses for hemp cloth as well in this case. And you can also make these really cool just blocks of padding that it's just another aesthetic block. And there's tons of other ways that you can actually just compress things in this mod. Now, of course, you can also make an Infernal Enchanter, which is basically an upgraded enchanting table, as well as other things. Now, let me take a brief look back over here, and we can actually see some of the different items as well. Now, I was looking in here. You've got your different durabilities and damages that you've got, and basically your gold tools in some cases are better than stone, in other cases they are worse. But not to worry, that's just something to let you know. In this case, I'm going kind of by durability, like 3 or 5 in this case for a stone pickaxe, but a golden pickaxe can last through 32, iron up to 500, diamond 1500, refined up to 2250, and so on. Each of the values are more or less similar in this case. They might vary a little bit with some of them. But then there's also this thing, the refined mattock, which is actually a combination of a pick and a shovel. So if I use it, I can actually just dig up dirt relatively quickly, as well as things that are as hard as stone, which it'd be really easy to do. So you have 2 tools in one. Very handy, very nice. And we also have other things that can do that. Of course, you've got your regular hoe. In this case, the golden hoe is very useless. The wooden hoe is even better than it. Stone, iron, diamond, refined, etc. And then you can go on with weapons as well. A refined sword just has a higher durability. It's not going to give you a better attack rate. In this case, I recommend you actually make yourself a battle axe for both weaponry and for chopping wood. If you make a refined battle axe, which is made in this manner, it's going to really be a go-to weapon for you. Of course, it's going to be very endgame because it's made from Soulforged steel, but it is a combo of a high weapon, which is 10 attack damage by default, and it attacks at the same speed as a regular sword does. On top of that, it can also be used to harvest wood at an ever so slightly reduced speed than a regular axe can. Now, if I grab a regular refined axe and chop down this tree, remember that these will quickly harvest leaves as well. You can see that it compared to a battle axe is almost identical. In fact, the battle axe might even be a little bit faster. I didn't even think about that. Neither one is really going to be very good at harvesting the stumps unless you use the stump remover or TNT or something of that note. But they're still going to be very useful. And not to mention that the refined axe is actually a much cheaper recipe, as well as any of the axes in this. If you look, it's just a couple cobble, couple sticks. And don't forget, if you do need to repair things, it's not really going to be an option for you in this case, unless you want to have them without enchantments. If you put enchantments on your tools, they really won't repair as you might think. For example, if I take an enchanted one and a non-enchanted one, put them together, I would get a regular non-enchanted one that's repaired. And this is pretty much the only way to do it, is to take like items together to repair these tools, so getting them in an unbreaking status is going to be very important, because I believe that the mending enchantment is actually disabled, even though you can find it in the descriptions on the side. But that's pretty much going to do it at this point. If you guys enjoyed this bit by bit on Better with Mods, be sure to give a like, comment, subscribe, and as always, be sure to spread the mischief to others. I think they'll enjoy this kind of content too. And if you want to support the mischief, just check the description below for links. Until next time, folks, I'll see ya.